Welcome today again to the Author Spotlight. I am one of your hosts, Cynthia Martin. Our podcast is actually hosted by yourauthorhub.com. I am an avid book reader, as you can see, and a lover of all things books. And here on this podcast and spotlight interview, we talk to all kinds of authors about their books, about their writing style, and the message and their habits. So join me today as we welcome Victor Allen, and he's going to be talking to us about a book. We haven't actually talked to an author about a business book as of yet, so I'm real excited about it. It's called Business Credit Leveraging. And he's going to explain to us what that all means, because you're thinking, okay, why would that be of interest? So, Victor, I'm real excited. I have several questions to ask you, and we welcome you today. Tell us a little bit about who you are and maybe even a little small synopsis of your book.
Okay, good morning. I'm Victor Allen. I want to go ahead and say I'm a retired towboat captain. Have approximately 27 years in the tow oil and gas industry as a towboat captain. I'm also an ordained minister at my local church here, Victory Church, and I volunteer as a chaplain for the City of Beaumont Police Department. And not only that, I'm an international best-selling author, and I'm happy to be here with you this morning. My
Wow, how
book is
exciting.
kind of go over some trials that I've had in establishing my business, and in my course of and sequence of taking a bunch of notes, I compiled it all into a book to tell a story.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that I want to know about today is so you have a degree, is that correct? And tell us a
Yes,
little bit
ma'am.
how you got started in this direction.
Well, I actually got started in this direction because I wanted to get away from the boats and start a business where I could be at home more. So in my trial and trying to set up a business, learning about credit, learning about all the things to structure a business, it took some time. And after going through all the things and understanding the things over time that I learned, I figured that there was somebody that needed this education.
Awesome. So the education as far as leveraging credit, I'm assuming.
Yes. So, for instance, what I started doing when I first got my LLC established is I started going to establish coding. I was filing insurance claims for doctors, and I was following a doctor and setting up at different events and conventions. And what I found out is that doctors graduating, or they had a lot of debt, and they didn't know how they were going to actually start a practice, get into practice, or afford the equipment for their practice, whatever they may need. So I saw a major need for to people to understand the financial part of business and how to establish lines of credit to get the equipment, the building, and everything they need to get established.
Okay, that's a really good point. A couple of things. First of all, you saw a need, because I think before we can do anything in business, we need to have a need to fulfill. Because if we're not filling a need, no one's going to purchase our service or our product, right? Same thing as an author. Our books need to fill a need. So, just so I'm understanding the timeline, you were a tugboat captain, is that correct? Your first career was a tugboat
Yes,
captain. Can you
yes,
tell
ma'am.
me, just because I'm curious, was it like on the Mississippi or in the ocean, or where was that?
Yes, ma'am. An inland captain. Yes, I've traveled all the navigable rivers in United States. Yes, up and down the Mississippi River, the lower Mississippi, the upper Mississippi, the Ohio River, Tennessee River, Cumberland River, Illinois River. All of these rivers transporting petrochemicals throughout the country from plant to plant.
Okay, well, that's
Yeah,
fascinating. Yeah, that
yes.
that itself could be a definitely an interesting story. So at some point, like you mentioned, that you wanted to be more at home, and is that when you decided you were going to go into this business of your own? Is that when you started amassing the material?
Yes. So my idea of it was I do have an degree. It's a degree. I graduated from Kaplan University, so I have an IT degree. So what I ended up doing was buying some billing and coding software that I could manage the accounts for the doctors to help them get their money that they're not receiving, and
Right.
add more revenue to their business. But what I saw, that the problem was the shortage of medical staff. There's people that are graduating and qualified, and they're just going in and taking a job for some other doctor that's already established, but they're not reaping their full or maximum what they could, their services. They're limiting themselves.
Right.
So after interacting in several conferences with the doctors and trying to establish accounts, I understood at that time what I had learned. There was a large need for people to understand this, because I mean, they were smart people in their profession that that they come out, but there was a gap. So in my description, I'm trying to help people bridge that gap, where the people have ambition, but they've ran into a problem, but I want to help them reach their God-given destiny. That's my goal.
That's great, and I love that you made so many great points there. When we study and we're in an area, a discipline, I guess is what you would call it, such as
Mhm.
you're using the example of the medical doctor. When they come out, they're learned, they're not lazy people. Obviously, they applied themselves to get through school, but they didn't have the time or the forethought thought, or necessarily, because they get out with a lot of school debt, how to turn what they know into something that can create business other than going to work for someone else or going into a hospital situation or something, or that sort of thing. And then going even further, that you had figured this out, and probably on a somewhat smaller scale, getting out of the tugboat business and going into this coding business for the doctors themselves. Then the point I want to make here is that even in what you'd learned, you still had your eyes open to see another opportunity, and you saw another gap with information that you had. And I think over our lives we run into those kinds of situations. And as you mentioned, you're a minister, and I think we could lead that even towards the leading of God, that as we follow him throughout our life, we start out on our road and God opens a door and we go through it, and God opens a door and we find ourselves at this place, and you realize, wow, it was just over time. When I began, I had really no idea that I was going to land here, not that we're ever landed. Well, we're still here. But what an interesting concept. I love the progression of what you learned. And so also the end point, that your heart is to help people move into their destiny. And so your book it focuses mainly on the business aspect of what's holding people back from moving into that, or is it encompass other areas as well?
Well, it's what we call in the kingdom. It's a whole different paradigm. One, most people in that situation have almost, I'm gonna say, exhausted their natural resources through their social security number. This book educates them on an EIN number, where
Hmm.
you can establish the business through the EIN number. And now it's like having a whole new identity to open accounts, to set up structure your business through the EIN number, and not the focus on your social security number, where you probably have hundreds of thousands in loans already, because the cost of education is out the roof these days.
Yeah.
So it's a breath of fresh air, and it kind of where you ran into that brick wall. Now you can like kind of breathe and say, hey, okay, there is a way. And then this is more of a teaching tool. It's not more of a story about myself. It's more like a dictionary, or financial dictionary of,
Okay.
so when you're having that conversation, at the bank and they give you instructions what you need. This clarifies what they're talking about, because it's almost two different languages. They've learned medical terms in that language in that realm, and now when you come over to the financial institutions, they have their own language. You know, they have their own codes. They have their own, you know, documents that they want completed, and it could throw people, you know, off track.
Right.
So my goal is to, you know, power people with the knowledge.
Right. And so to understand what you're saying is, I love that you're expounding on the definitions and even the explanation of the two different languages. I think that happens in every industry. We have our own language, and we go to talk to people, and maybe they're not in our industry, and so we sound like we're talking gibberish to them because they miss every fifth word because we're using our own lingo. So I understand that. So moving out of the medical field into finances, or the financial realm, I guess is what you could say. So this is appropriate for any, not just the medical field, any field outside that doesn't understand the medical knowledge, or not the medical, but the financial. Is that correct?
Right. So what really helped me transition was the pandemic, because as I learned these things, the pandemic happened in 2020. And so I got a call from a publisher to ask me, they asked me, would I write a chapter in a book that the theme was going to be how is my LLC, how am I sustaining my business through the pandemic? And the title is, that book is called The Expert's Cure. It's called How Entrepreneurs Are Changing the World. So I wrote a chapter in here. It's titled The Harvest of a Seed. But what I was able to write about in here is the principle in the kingdom that we have seed time and harvest. What the Lord says, where you plant a seed, as long as the earth remains, you shall reap a harvest. So the editor titled the chapter The Harvest of a Seed. So what I'm trying to get them is the knowledge of a seed, but what they'll receive at the end is the harvest of the seed of their education or whatever you're seeking, or, you know, it's going to come through the education. So it's the process, and getting the information to the people to get through the process.
Okay. And so the analogy of the seed time and the harvest is excellent. I agree. So are those kinds of principles also applied in business credit leveraging? Do you bring that aspect into the book?
Well, this is what happened, and it was really a move of God. The Expert's Cure was released before my book was released.
Mm-hmm.
And The Expert's Cure, when it came out, it was #2 on the Wall Street Journal and listed #5 on USA Today. So I was able to, on my book release, but at the bottom, write that I'm a Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling author. So when that book got so much exposure, it put my books into the lot of hands of people and catapulted me to be an international bestseller in 5 different countries. Wow. So now I'm starting to see people buy the audio version. They're listening to it more than buying hard copies. But it's the journey. The story of what I want to talk about is the journey and the path that the Lord has for you to continue the process. And as you continue your journey and you share your journey, it's going to bless others.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. There's so many steps. I deal with a lot of people who work online, who have online businesses and online ministries, and some of the things, the steps that you're sharing, primarily Christians I work with, are gold, really. And so the value of understanding, I think, let me stop here and let me rephrase this. Sometimes we run into a wall and we think, because we don't know what to do, we stop, right? And we think, oh, it's not God's will. But we don't tend to look around and see what other resources God's given us in order to move past this very small obstacle that seems like it's a huge obstacle in our own natural eyes, right? And then there are other brothers and sisters who have the answers for us. So what a great addition for Christians per se, probably for everyone, but specifically for Christians. Also, I like that you mentioned the value of that first book. It gave you a bigger platform, I think is what you're suggesting, right? And
Yes,
so it
ma'am.
opened the door for your second book.
Yes, ma'am. And the credibility was, phenomenal. When I was
Right.
able to put that on my cover as far as the Wall Street Journal and the USA Today, the credibility it was phenomenal, and it was more people gravitating to the information and knowledge now because just because of the educational piece.
Right.
So yes, I would say always be, receptive to receive the opportunity or the door that opens. For instance, like we're having this interview today. I never knew you,
Right.
but I have a media guy that finds me media, and I just want to, work through the, continually the journey through the path that the Lord lays before me.
Good point. That's what we have to do. We have to, the scripture says we're to ask and seek and knock. And so we ask and then we seek. And sometimes we have to seek other people to help us, and that's okay. And I appreciate, you pointing that out as you have somebody helping you find the next things that you need to do, the open doors so that you can walk through them. You're not pushing any doors down. You're just looking for places to speak about your book. So
Yes,
let's
ma'am.
go back to the book itself. When you mentioned that it was somewhat of a dictionary that helps you move from your terminology of wherever you are, whatever genre, wherever discipline, into the financial world discipline or into their language. Is it like a step one, step two, or this is what they said you need? This is how you need to gather it. Talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, so that was my journey. So as you're going in and maybe you want to establish your business, and the bank will tell you, well, you need this and you need that. This book will answer what that is. And then it'll also answer the next step of what you need to do. But you'll hear these in the conversation at the bank. I'd like to get a line of credit, or if it's equipment, it tells you, you need to go to the, John Deere. Maybe it's a farmer. He can get a line of credit from the John Deere guy. He doesn't necessarily have to have a bank loan because his problem is equipment. But everybody usually thinks the bank, the bank, the bank. No, you need equipment. So he could go and get his tractor equipment through a line of credit through the John Deere guy. And if he needs seeds to plant, he could actually open up a business account with the feed store, and he could get his seeds from on a line of credit from the farmer. So now he just opened two accounts rather than going to the bank and open, with everything, on the shoulder of the bank. You can, establish your accounts that you may need. And like another account would be useful as like a Home Depot or Lowe's. They'll extend your account. So if he has, tools he needs, or, flowers or whatever you need from there, opening these accounts, now you've given yourself life. You've given yourself room and opportunity to go complete a task, make the money, address your accounts, and keep, your net profits. But this will kept, kind of, the book will kind of like line those up, different lines of credit rather than just the bank.
Okay. Uh, so it's not all just going into a financial institution. You're introducing other ideas in order for financing.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
great. I totally missed that. So thank you for clarifying. I appreciate that. So we've talked about the medical field. We've talked about a farmer, great analogy, especially with the seed time and the harvest. So would you say this is applicable to what kinds of industries?
I would say anything you're trying to do. I mean, it's open to, like I just used an example for a farmer. It could be a construction guy. It could be, the lines of credit could vary. I also ran 18-wheelers. I had two 18-wheelers running over the road where I had opened up fuel accounts, and my fuel accounts also allowed my guys to get oil or anything that tire or whatever they have at the truck stop. And it also on that fuel account gave them like an allowance, $200 per week. So all of these things are different lines of credit that I use in business to generate income. So
To leverage, as your title says, to leverage your business so that you could grow it. Am I understanding?
Right. And now to give you another example, how the title business credit leveraging, what I'm doing today is I'm partnering with it's kind of like a syndicate. There's one sponsor, but we're buying two different apartment complexes on one deal. Now I'm leveraging that guy's credit. We're doing business together. I don't have to have the entire money. I can just put my portion in and just receive, it's all proportional what you put in, what you get out. But what I'm saying, I don't have to be a billion. He's a billionaire. I don't have to have the 800 credit score. I don't have to go to the bank and get the credit. I mean, he's doing an all cash deal. So I'm just leveraging the relationship. So it can be used several different ways. I've explained, as an 18-wheeler, I own a couple 18-wheelers. I used to buy and sell flip houses. You can set up business, the insurance claims filing. It just depends on what you want to do as far as not only how you structure yourself. I structure my company as LLC, and I had different schedules for different things that I was doing, and it goes under one filing. So it's totally it'll open up your mind to all the ideas that God has already given you.
Right. So first off, I want to say you don't look old enough to be able to have done all of those things. You look fabulous. So to say that you've worked already 20 years in this industry and you worked in this industry and this industry, I'm thinking he just doesn't look old enough. So I guess that's a good living and living in the kingdom, right? Second thing I want to ask about is you mentioned the LLC. Does your book talk about the different formations of how to establish a company, or are you looking at it once at what point do you come in as to be a tool for someone?
I'm available to receive calls and help people, but I personally structured as an LLC because of all the different things I wanted to do under one umbrella. No, it doesn't really go into, the formation of LLCs or S corps or how you want to set yourself up, but that is based on the conversation you're having with the bank, and everything the bank is going to say is going to be defined within this book. There's not nothing they're going to talk about that you have a question about. You can just use it. If you walk in there and reference it and go to when they're talking, you can read the chapter and say, oh, that's what they mean about it. Or probably read it a little bit before you go in there, and then have your meeting, and then you know the items that you need. I took it it was a downfall for me when I was first trying to get established and do stuff, and I didn't know what the paper meant, and I'd go to the courthouse and I was like, and it's discouraging. It's discouraging, at first. And it takes a while to get everything, all lined up. But once it's lined up correctly in the filings, you have a lot of help as far as the lines of credit. And you're good to go.
And so it doesn't so much deal with the structures, whether you're a corporation or individual or LLC. You're talking about, I'm trying to figure out at what point, what would be a scenario, somebody gets out of college or at some point in life, they feel that they have a business plan or they, God gives them something that they want to do, and they know what they want to do in their life, but now they need to step out for some reason beyond what they're financially able to do. So then they need to start thinking about, how am I going to fund this? So that the point when which your book would come
Yes,
in?
yes, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. Because at that point, that's when all the questions are going to be: where's your building? Who, are you going to have employees? Where's your business account? How much capital you have for payroll? How, that's it right then. Because you have the ambition. The ambition is what drove you to this point in life. But when it comes to the finances and how this thing is going to go, it's a huge roadblock. And
Yeah.
that's the part I said can be very discouraging. And that's what caused me, to keep. My book is basically a series of a lot of notes. This happened, that happened. And then once I learned what it was and then define it out in detail, that's why I put it here. This is like it's going to be your resource notebook when they say, hey, your credit scores are bad, you need to get those up. Well, who do I call about that? You got the agencies in here. Hey, you need to open more lines of credit. Here we could probably give you 50,000, to help with your payroll and temporary, get you underway. But we don't have equipment financing. So I mean, the lines of credit and knowing the different things and seeing them all separately but necessary. And all you have to do is have your filings correctly filed in the courthouse to open the account. And when they open the account, they automatically give you X amount of credit. They don't open business accounts and tell you, you don't have anything. They open them, and business accounts are a lot larger than personal accounts. For instance, when I opened my Home Depot, they gave me $20,000, right. And my personal account only had $3,000. So, I mean, you can do volumes, by, establishing yourself with the court filings and then go to the businesses to set up the accounts that you'll need to operate and function with.
So I think we fail a lot because we don't know the definition of terms of what you said, your book is about, is helping you to not only have a dictionary definition, because sometimes in dictionary definitions, they use the word to define the word, which is very frustrating, but you go into
Right.
detail explaining what this means and how to get that. So I think sometimes we fail because we don't know what to ask even. And if you read your book, you kind of have an overview, so you're not going to get pushed off the side. Is that correct?
Right. You're gonna know, okay, lines of credit, which LOCs are, I've heard the conversations, but I never thought of the conversation would be with me one day. That's not for me, or what is that? And I heard people say, oh, they're hard to get. They're not hard to get if your filings are, legit, because here's the deal. If you look at the owner of Walmart, he has more lines of credit than anybody. He has like almost 600 different lines of credit. So all of that stuff in Walmart, he didn't pay for it. He just had them sent to Walmart, and then after you pay, he has a manager that manages the account and makes the payment, and they get some more supplies. So yeah, you have to kind of have a mentor and watch or see how somebody else is structured to kind of give you these ideas, and you're like, wow, and I thought he had all his money. No, he's got a lot of lines of credit that generated the money. So
Yeah.
once all you need to do is that on a smaller scale. You don't have to build another Walmart. You could build a small store or whatever the business is. It's just that I don't know, for some reason it's not very much taught on finances these days.
No, there isn't.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. So 2 points I want to pull out of there is I think it's very valuable for us to understand. I think there's a myth out there that what we would consider rich or wealthy people use their own money. Most of the time they don't. They use someone else's money. And I think that's a great point to make. The other point I wanted to make is that you said that you had made a lot of mistakes. And for me, isn't it always better to learn from someone who has been there made some mistakes and correct it. I want to learn from that kind of a person. I want to learn from someone who's not done everything perfect, but has made mistakes, especially if I think I'm going to fall into that mistake, and they can steer me from around that, that sinkhole that could be in front of me that I
Yeah.
wouldn't even know about.
Well, I'll show you. Yeah, this book is from a series of mistakes and getting the answer no. But I'm gonna show you, give you a simple nugget, and the audience watching. I was turned down for a loan, and at this point, I'd made several corrections. I had my LLC formed right, and my score was in the almost 800. It was like the high 700s, my credit score, and I go into the bank, and after going in here several times, the CEO of the bank finally told me what the issue was. And one of their boxes that they check off, listen up, is if your business is listed on the national registry. And she said that was the only thing wrong. So I don't know if she was supposed to tell me that. And I think as she saw me just coming and trying, and that's all I had to do was get it registered on the 411. So now, I immediately figured out how to do that and got my number, listed on my business number listed on that national directory. And that's one of the things that the banks check to see if you're legitimate or not. And it had nothing to do with, it's just a revelation of understanding how to set up things that then open the doors. Then that same bank started doing construction loans for me. They would, I'd buy a house with my LLC, and they would give me, $80,000 to renovate it with, and so forth. She started working with me, but they saw me, I change this, or I go get this, and I go back. And finally, they told me that one thing: your company doesn't have a number on the national registry.
So are you talking like a Dun and Bradstreet number, or some other number?
No, just like whatever your business name is, it has to. If it doesn't have a phone number that's listed on the national registry, where they can call and like, I don't know, I think it's 411 or something like that. But your number, your business has to be, listed on there. And
that's interesting.
That's a huge thing, because I didn't understand. By this time, I was, I've checked off some of the boxes. I got my credit score, I got my filings right. Now, I even, had a business account at that bank, and I was trying to do another venture, and she told me that one thing. So there you go. It's like, yeah, that's huge with banks.
I'd not heard that before, so that's great news. So what what the synopsis of kind of what I'm hearing there from you today, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's hope out there, and that if God has shown you something to do, then He's going to provide a way. And this is one venue, one area, one street in which He's opening up for you if you feel like God wants you to do something bigger than what you're able to do financially wise. Then our Victor here is going to, he's offering you this book in order to get some of the answers that may be what's tripping you up. It may be some small thing, like he just mentioned, that's small in our mind. You're like, are you kidding? But according to our funding people, it's the whole deal. And they're not always forthcoming and telling us that you just need to have this little box checked. Am I correct in what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's huge. And see, I myself, like, hopefully all your audience, and if not, maybe by the end of this, somebody gonna receive the Lord as their Savior. I'm thinking, hey, I'm living right, I'm believing God, and and I wouldn't give up. And so, just like you said at the start, you got to knock and keep on knocking. Mm-hmm. And so, with that, being said, and finally getting the things done, and then getting the wheels turning. And once they start to turn, the opportunities are, it's really awesome.
Wow. So most of my audience, Victor, or the audience that are attracted to this podcast and this interview, are authors. They're people who are trying to get a book published, or they have a story to tell. And so what would you say to someone who is a new author and may be a bit discouraged, or they're not sure how to get their book out there, or if they should pursue it, what would you say to them, or even about creating a book itself?
First thing I would say is you're already done with the book. Turn it into a publisher. Don't try to be your publisher, the critic, the whoever. Most people have finished projects and they're thinking, oh, I need one more chapter, or I'm not quite done, or maybe my spelling is not there. Don't be the editor, the publishing company. You have, once you get, get the process started, they're going to help you with the cover. They're going to finish it. Like I said, I turned in this chapter for the book, but the editor gave the title to the chapter. You have a lot more help, and most people are sitting there, oh no, no, put it out there, because someone needs that story. Someone needs what you have. And until you put it out there, today I've been out the country, but my book went international and I've never been out the country before, 5 other countries. So you don't know where your help is going to come from. So don't be, putting the pressure on yourself. Call a publisher. Hey, let them make that decision and let them edit, help you, assist you, and bring that vision into life.
Interesting points. I have written a book myself, and I self-published, and I got so tired of the book. And the last bit of it, I got so tired of editing. We did about 3 rounds of editing. And finally, at the end, I just said, it's done. I'm not going to fix anymore. I don't want to go over it again. I'm just tired of it. And I just did it. And I've always regretted doing that. And so I've, decided this year I'm going to get that back out and rewrite the manuscript the way I wanted to, 10 years later, and write it that way I want, or maybe make a whole new book, but use a lot of that material, but change it a bit. So I think there's so much value there, though, in submitting it. People don't talk about this as authors, that when you self-publish, all of that is on you. All your editing is on you. All of that is on you. And it's so tiring. You just lose the joy of the book. And when you go to a publisher, they help you with the editing. They help you with the title and the cover. And they help you with being able to get it to be a much more promotable book. So that's great, great, great advice there. And we're about out of time, but I just can't help myself. I want to ask this question, because it is about authors, our show is. And you had said that you had a publisher, I think it was a publisher, correct me if my wording's wrong, that contacted you about being a part of a book. Is that someone you knew? How did they find you? How do you get involved in that kind of a situation?
Well, yeah, well, let me back up a little bit. My book, this is the second edition. So I released it, redone like what you're thinking about to do, and then retitled it and signed with the new publisher. But I was in the process of doing that, and I was talking to a publishing company, and I hadn't released my book yet. I was in the process of redoing it, and then that's when the publisher called me with this project about the anthology, where there's 20 different authors in the one book. And I said, sure. So I kind of put my project kind of on hold and let me focus on this. And what I wanted to do in this book was, before I released my book, was I wanted to release the book, the Word of God inside of this book. And I know the Word is going to do what the Word does. I wanted to, and I did, put the Word of God within my contents of what I wrote inside of the book before I released my book. Now, what you see now is the title of that chapter, The Harvest of the Seed. I'm the harvest of that seed that I planted in this book. What I'm receiving in the international, from those countries, is the harvest of that seed that I planted in that book. What I'm telling you about is the harvest of the seed that I believe, that the destiny that God had in me, that He was seeing the provisions for the vision. I didn't, all I can say, and I won't put a number on it, the longer it goes, the more you believe and trust God, you become, over time, you become very wealthy. Let me just
Wow.
put it like that. It's humbling, but I never did this thinking about, hey, I'm gonna make money. I wanted to share. I want to share my, you know, my journey, and it's just a beautiful thing. But the whole moral of the whole thing is don't give up on yourself. Continually keep pushing, keep going. Okay, this is what I need. And the conversation in the bank, community bank, big bank, local bank, whoever, savings alone, whatever you're using, don't take that no as a bad thing. They are actually helping you because they're saying no today, but you need this in order to do what you're saying you need. It's
Yeah.
just that you don't know you need it.
Mhm.
So the whole thing is you kind of get let down because when you went in there, you want it to happen then, but it didn't happen then. They're not saying it's not going to happen. They're saying in order for us to do it for you, we need this,
Mhm.
but it's on your shoulders, but it just sounds like, no sounds like no, you know what I mean? But you got to train your ears in the opposite. It's like, so I work as an evangelist. So my ears are trained for the opposite because that's the way the enemy talks to us. He'll say, oh, you're nothing and nobody. But the truth is you're royalty. You know what I mean? So my ears, when I hear no, I know it's really a yes, but I need to fulfill whatever I need to fulfill. So that's the way my ears are trained. So that's why I want to encourage somebody that no is what they said, but the answer is yes to what you need to fulfill that destiny by what they're telling you. That's really the yes. It just comes out as a not today, but when you bring this, it's a yes.
Wow.
That's the key part.
That's huge, and I think that's such a valuable piece for authors, especially those who are pursuing a publisher, a book publisher. No doesn't mean no to it's dead. Got to burn the manuscript. It just means maybe no there, or
Mhm.
maybe no, not right now. That no is not the end. It's just the period of time.
Yes, my pastor
Such a
always
great
would
word.
say, delayed does not mean denied.
Hmm. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we are really out of time. I've just really enjoyed talking to you, Victor, today. And I want to encourage those of you that are out there, our audience, to grab the book. Looks like there's, even though it's called Business Credit Leveraging, it sounds like there's so many other tools in there. And I love the seed time and harvest aspect, and the godly perspective that Victor's brought today. So we're out of time, but we hope that you enjoyed listening. I've enjoyed the conversation today. I've enjoyed learning about Victor today and his book and God's call in his life and all the different awesome things that God has shown him. And as I said, we can all learn from one another. And he's just opening up a new door for us to look at and listen to and learn from. And I'm just so thankful for him. And I want to thank our sponsor, Your Author Hub, for sponsoring to help make this podcast happen. And so, again, I've already mentioned it, but I'll say it again. Don't forget to go grab his book. I believe it's available on Amazon. Is that right?
Yes,
It's
yes.
available on Amazon. Business Credit Leveraging by Victor Allen. And Allen is Allen, because I know you can spell Allen a bunch of ways. And so
Right.
go over there and grab that book. And we so appreciate you. And we'll see you next time on the Author Spotlight. God bless you.